If you really look back at your past encounters with certain individuals, you're going to see a pattern that you cannot ignore. It might have went over our head at the time. Actually, a lot of things we did not quite notice until a little bit later, or maybe your discernment kicked in and you were able to leave on time. But you have encountered certain people that were sent as a monitoring spirit, as well as a narcissistic handler that could have turned into your next abuser. Because one thing that you have to notice is that when you carry a lot of wounds, you emanate an aura that abusers and predators can smell. Just like in my last video where I talked about monitoring spirits, and also how the narcissistic sharks, can smell the vulnerable aura that a person radiates when they have a lot of unhealed wounds and they're not aware of it. It is very dangerous to have a high level of empathy and little to no discernment. Part of having empathy, right? That's considered a spiritual gift that allows you to really read the room and also the type of energy that people carry. But empathy is often weaponized against us by these narcissistic individuals, abusers. What you see may disturb you, but at least you know who is behind these things, these things of plotting against you or trying to take your energy, trying to really, really drain you. There's a reason why certain people are always watching you. There's a reason why certain righteous individuals, highly spiritually gifted individuals, are often targeted and observed. Monitoring spirits have been following us, not just throughout our lifetime, but they have been following us for generations. They're basically familiar spirits, So not only do you have open portals from your own traumas that you've been through personally, but now there's other portals that we probably are not quite aware of that have been opened in the past generations. People who came before us. There's certain things that they might have done or that they might have been through. Whatever the case is, there's so many different ways that this can show up. But portals have been opened, from transgressions and disobedience to divine order, or by being a victim of abuse that has been going on for a long time. And someone had to be born into this unit in order to break those curses. And that person that's chosen to do that, they're going to carry a very heavy weight. Everybody's going to hate them. That is known as the black sheep of the family. The chosen ones, right? Chosen ones go through a lot, and people really don't realize, the heaviness of the pain that they carry. The reason why monitoring spirits have an obsession with individuals that have spiritual gifts or that have been chosen to break generational curses is because they are seeing a person that's basically going to really dramatically change the generational timeline. That generational timeline is going to go through a major change, a major restoration. And what happens when a person breaks generational curses and things get restored? That means that this familiar spirits no longer have any negative energy to feed off of. They don't have, basically, the act of you breaking curses is starving these demons. And that is why monitoring spirits and familiar spirits, they have to keep an eye on you, and they will go to great lengths to stop you, because they know that the moment that the more curses you break within that line, the more you restore not only yourself, your lineage, but also those around you. So not only are you doing this for your own bloodline, but now you're also helping others restore as well by sharing your stories, your testimonies, your insight, or just the act of you being alive after going through these things, and people are aware of that can actually inspire and motivate people to not give up on themselves. You're basically motivating and inspiring people to basically better themselves, and also to reach out to the Most High. And they're basically doing things that is going to improve their life, and it's going to strengthen their spiritual connection with God, and that's going to really transform them, and which means that more demonic strongholds are going to be broken. That's a big deal. And like I said, the more people that get released from spiritual bondage, especially generations and generations of familiar spirits just going crazy. The familiar spirits, they've been really thriving off of the pain, suffering, and the traumas from those who came before you, and now you're coming into the world as a new generation, bringing forth restoration. That is a huge threat to the kingdom of darkness. And so, of course, they're going to do everything in their power to stop you. And they anticipate your arrival. Yes, monitoring spirits, that's why they know who you are. And they're anticipating your arrival, just like when you get off of a plane and someone is holding a sign with your name on it. Oh, we miss you. Oh, welcome home. Well, that's the fake love of the covert narcissist. And the covert narcissists, they're going to come with monitoring spirits. Pretty much every single narcissistic handler, abuser, whatever you want to call them, they carry monitoring spirits, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. They have that, because that's just what it is. They were sent to watch you, and also not only to watch you, but they want to keep you at a low vibration. That's why do you think they're so controlling? These individuals, they want to really keep you down, because they break you apart so that you never fulfill the restoration of yourself, of your lineage, and of others that can be inspired and moved by your testimony, because your testimony is very powerful, and that's the reason why those monitoring spirits, they can't get their eyes off of you. These monitoring spirits, they have to keep you at a certain low, it's like in a certain level, which is a low level. They have to keep you down, because that is the only way that they can ensure that they can thrive off of your own pain and suffering, because that's basically what it is. That's their food. That's why covert narcissists, abusive personalities, the abusive type of people, they cannot allow you to live a happy life. That's why they're so controlling, and they want to capture you. They want to capture you. They can't have you with this sense of freedom. When you have a spiritual mind, when you have that spiritual vision that sees through them, they can't have you having that. They can't have you not having that carnal mind, because see, the only way they can control you is if you don't have the vision to see them. But they sure as hell have the vision to see you. They have their eyes on you. They don't want you to have the spiritual vision to see them, but they want to have their eyes on you at all times. That's what you call an unfair fight, and that's how they operate. Nothing will ever be fair when it comes to a narcissist. When it comes to Diablo, you will never have a fair fight. It's a reason why they go after certain individuals, the wounded ones. You know, they go after them. They smell the blood like a shark. And when you think of a wounded warrior, well, you know, they're bleeding. The narcissistic sharks, they can smell that blood, that vulnerability, you know, and they go in for it because they know that that's the only time where they are at the closest to capturing you. Think about how much that emphasizes how weak they really are. They're not that powerful, because if they were powerful, why do they have to weaken you so much? Why do they have to come at a certain time when you're at your most vulnerable? You know, why do they have to come at you during those times? They could never really truly, you know, really get at you when you reach a certain level higher spiritually. That's the reason why they do what they do. And in order for them to be able to attack you at the right time, they would have to have been watching you, you know? It's kind of like monitoring spirits. Is really trippy how this works, because it sounds like we're talking about one person, but this could be multiple people with the same spirit. So that's basically gang stalking if you really think about it. Every mission that you accomplish, every objective, you know, it comes with a set of powers, you know, a set of resilience, a set of strength, you know, different abilities that you develop when dealing with certain individuals that are sent to destroy you, but you end up destroying them because you can see them, you know. They have to keep their eyes on you for a reason. When you understand how powerful that you can really be. You see, these people, these monitoring spirits, they have, you know, you may have spiritual vision, but the monitoring spirits, they have the type of vision that can see further into the future. So it's almost like they know where you're gonna go, and they have an idea of that. They have an idea. It's like they look at you and they say, this is the one that's gonna give me the most problems, you know, this is the one that's gonna make it hard for me, right? So of course they know who you are. They already knew what to expect. They saw you as someone that was going to be a problem. And that's the reason why for most of your life, people have made you out to be the problem, to be the troublemaker. Because in a way, you kind of are. Now, in reality, you're not a troublemaker, but you are a troublemaker to Diablo and his operation, you know. From the moment that you were born, that's when these monitoring spirits started to run toward you, right? To get close. They might not have touched you yet. Or maybe they tried to. Because sometimes some people are not supposed to be born, right? So damn, it's like they didn't even want you to be born either. So it's like certain things would be orchestrated to prevent you from being born, you know? But you're born nonetheless. And so if that doesn't work, then they're going to continue to spiritually attack you from your earliest years. This brings me back to a dream I had about 2 years ago. In that dream, I saw my first abuser. The one that I encountered when I was in my earliest years. You know, in the dream, well, it was a PTSD dream, but I'm not going to go into all the details, but I will notice that there's one part that really stood out to me in the dream, and that is the part where I saw his other victims. You know, they were afraid of him, but when he came to me, it was like I don't know, it was like the only thing that I had in mind was I was looking at the door, and my first instinct was to run as fast as I can and escape from that place, you know, at that point. So it was like he could see the look of concentration on my face. He could see that I was so focused on something that I was still planning my escape. So that kind of look, it has this fierce and fearless type of look that he did not like, because he noticed that the look on my face was different than the rest of the others that were standing next to me, And so I remember looking at his face in the dream, and he was holding something on his hand, to threaten me with. And I said, well, I looked at the door, and he was kind of like sitting in a chair close to the door. So, he could have, it would have been risky for me to try to run to the door because he was next to the door, right? But I did it anyway in the dream, right? In the dream, I dashed right out that door. I ran, I sprinted so fast that I don't even remember opening the door or turning the doorknob or anything like that. It's like I just went through that thing, and I just kept running. And I remember toward the end of the dream, like I just was sprinting down the street, and then I just kept going, and then eventually I stopped because I ran so far that he had no idea where the hell I was at. And so this is a dream, right? So this is a dream showing me certain elements that I already know, because I know you're never the only victim. When it comes to SA, you're never the only victim. There's no such thing as an SA predator only attacking once. Unless you happen to be the first victim ever, but they're going to continue to do that, because if for a person to go that far, for a person to do something so depraved, I mean, there's no turning back, you know what I mean? So once they engage in that wickedness, they're going to continue on with that, That's the thing you have to remember. That's a way to, help validate survivors, because survivors, we tend to question themselves as to what happened to them. Did it really yes, it did happen. What happened to you. Your body remembers it. And if you ever are in doubt of what was done to you, your body will always remind you one way or another. It's called PTSD, the complex kind. And then there's so many other things that so many other things that can pop up. Even chronic pain, right? Chronic body pain, things like that. Like, I'm no doctor, but I think fibromyalgia might be one of those things too, right? That's just or it could just, like I said, there's so many different medical conditions, neurological conditions, that has to do with pain, right? Or even mental health. That's a big one too, mental health, because they break you down in so many ways that your body will remember that. Your nervous system never forgets. So don't doubt yourself. See, abusive people, that's why they gaslight. But one thing they can never gaslight is the way that your body responds to a certain type of energy that reminds you of abuse. Your body always remembers. And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Now, I have not read it, but it's definitely on one of my reading lists. And a lot of people have brought it up to me. I've had so many people recommend it. So that's definitely something that I would like to read, because it goes into depth about how the body keeps the score on all the things that you've experienced, your abuse, your trauma. Your body experiences that on such a deep level. So when people try to minimize your trauma, they try to downplay. I can't stand when people do that. People that try to belittle your trauma. You have to cut those people off, because that's just evil. That's downright evil. It shows a lack of empathy, lack of compassion, and that is not a friend. That's damn sure not family. So monitoring spirits, the more you learn about yourself, the more you understand why they have to keep their eyes on you, but there's no need to worry or be concerned with them. Understand that you have the power in this whole dynamic. You carry that power. You carry that supply. Literally, people talk about supply, right? Narcissistic supply and stuff like that. Narcissists are always after that supply. That supply is always your energy. You'll notice that a narcissist could never supply themselves, right? So without you, they starve. They need you in order to be fed, in order to feel so powerful in whatever way that shows up. It always includes your enslavement and you being under spiritual bondage and under demonic strongholds that keeps you at a low vibration. That is the only way that a narcissistic handler, gang stalker, abuser, that's the only way that they can be fed well. Which means that as much as they try to make you feel like you're powerless, like you're nothing, the truth is that you're everything and you carry all the power. It's just that they are sucking the life out of you, so it makes you feel like you're powerless. But in reality, you have that. You're the battery. You're the one that they're really trying to, that they have been siphoning from. You know, so when you understand that, if you know that you're the big battery that's been powering up these devils, you know, throughout your whole life. Literally, there's not just one person, but there's multiple people that have been feeding off your energy. You know, it's kind of like your public Wi-Fi. You know, everyone is using your Wi-Fi. And you know, the more people that are using that same Wi-Fi router, eventually the connection becomes very slow, stagnant, and stuff like that. And if it's like I said, public Wi-Fi, it does not have the most secure connection, so you're more likely to get viruses and stuff. So that's what they want to do to you. You know, they want to feed off of you until there's nothing left, right? So that's how they see you. But once you realize that, now you're going to add more security, you know, to your connection, your ability to connect, right? When you understand how much fuel that you carry, I mean, you have the power to decide who you want to feed and who you want to starve. There's people that you can empower and enlighten with your energy, but then you have to be careful with the ones that they want to deplete, drain, and ultimately destroy your energy. And those are the people that you can starve. You can starve the demons that are operating inside these individuals, these narcissistic, abusive individuals. It takes a level of mastery to really be able to have like the right discernment, like, okay, who is this person, right? Who sent them? You know, that's very important for you to ask these questions and to really think about this, because you're not a regular person. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video right here, you know. Take care.